It wasn't exactly fair on my part to shoot them from cover while they were unaware of my presence, but the circumstances demanded it. There were 6 people in the clearing. One man was holding a knife to another man's throat, another was pointing a gun at a woman, and a third was pulling clothes off a young woman. My first shot hit the man with the knife square in the forehead, and he collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. The man holding the gun turned at the sound of the shot, and my next bullet tore through his throat. The man who was pulling the woman's clothes stepped back and raised his hands in the universal gesture of surrender, but, unfortunately for him, I wasn't taking prisoners. My third shot was another one straight to the forehead. I had no problem killing them. They weren't even close to being the first. Uncle Sam taught me how it's done and made sure I got plenty of practice shooting bad guys. With 3 down, I stayed put to make sure there wasn't anyone else around who could pose a threat. The man and the woman hurried over to help the young woman. As I watched what was happening in the clearing, I reflected on the events that had led me there. I was in Texas, a bit south of Presidio. I had been hunting wild boar and had just settled into my sleeping bag when I heard a woman scream. I grabbed my AR-15 and went to see what was happening. I reached the trees surrounding a small clearing and observed the scene. It wasn't hard to figure out who the bad guys were, and I dealt with them. Even the one who tried to surrender had to die because I didn't want to involve the local law enforcement in this matter. In truth, my wild boar hunt was over, and by dawn, I hoped to be halfway home to Colorado. I was curious about what was happening. I walked into the clearing with my rifle in hand and approached the 3 people there. As I got closer, I pointed to the woman whose clothes had been torn and asked if she was all right. The man, who was clearly Latino or possibly Mexican, since we were near the Texas-Mexico border, responded in fairly decent English, "Thanks to you, she's okay, senor." He explained that he had paid the men with the knife and the gun to smuggle him and his family into the United States and deliver them to his cousin, who lived in Las Cruces. They had met the 2 men near Ojinaga, and after crossing the border, they encountered a third man who was supposed to drive them to Las Cruces. They were brought to the clearing, and one of the men said he needed a little extra sweetener for what he was doing and began tearing Juanita's clothes. I asked where their car was, and he said it was parked further up the road from the clearing. I asked if he could drive, and he agreed. I went over to the bodies and searched them. I found $3,000 on the man with the knife and another $2,000 on the other 2. I handed all the money to the man, whose name was Roberto, and told him to put his family in the car, follow me, and I would drive him to Las Cruces. It was only a 5-hour drive, and when I dropped them off, I waved goodbye and headed back to Denver. Because I cut my trip short, I returned 3 days early. I was surprised to find my driveway packed with cars. I assumed my wife, Anne, had probably invited some of her friends over for a card party. I went inside and discovered I was half right. There was a party, but no cards in sight. Steph, Anne's best friend, was on the couch with some guy I didn't recognize. Bess, one of the women Anne worked with, was draped over the back of a chair, and another guy, one of Anne's co-workers, though I couldn't recall his name, was with her. Seeing all this, I had no doubt what I would find when I reached our bedroom. As I passed by the guest room, I peeked in and saw Anne's brother, Tom, with another one of Anne's co-workers. When I got closer to our bedroom, I heard a man's voice shout, "I'm almost done. Who's next?" When I reached our bedroom, I saw I was right. Anne was on our bed with her boss. Have I mentioned that I pulled out my phone and recorded everything? Needless to say, my appearance caused quite a bit of chaos. Steph spotted me and yelled, "Oh crap," as she tried to wriggle free from the guy with her. The man with Bess stepped back, raising his hands defensively as if to say, "Hey, man, this isn't my fault. I'm just along for the ride." Tom's expression as I passed the guest room said it all, "What the hell? You're not supposed to be here," but the absolute terror on Anne's face was something I knew I'd remember for years. "Rick," her boss, decided to play the tough guy and jumped off the bed, assuming some kind of karate stance. I just laughed at him. I knew how this sort of thing worked. If I attacked him, the cops would put the handcuffs on me because he was Anne's guest. But if I could get him to attack me first, I could beat him up and walk away clean. That's why I laughed at him. I wasn't mocking Big Bad Rick. I added to the laughter, "You look ridiculous standing there in a fake martial arts pose with your pathetic little excuse of a manhood dangling down." That did the trick, and he lunged at me. Did I mention I'd been recording everything from the moment I walked in? I think he figured that since I was holding my phone and filming, he'd get the chance to take me down, and if he got in the first hit, he could finish me off. When he rushed at me, I threw my phone at his face, and when he raised his hands to block it, I punched him in the groin. He doubled over, grabbing himself and dropped to his knees. I calmly picked up my phone, helped him back to his feet, twisted his left arm into a lock, and marched him through the house to the front door. Then I shoved him, naked, out onto the porch, shut the door, and turned on the porch light. While I'd been dealing with Macho Rick in the bedroom, almost everyone else had dressed and left. Except for 3 people: Tom, who said he stayed to make sure I didn't hurt his sister; Steph, who claimed she would be there for and if needed; and, of course, Anne. Steph asked what I planned to do, and I told her I was going to divorce Anne. Why? It was just casual sex. There was no love in it. I don't think so. She took the same vows I did. I felt desire for other women, but I never acted on it beyond that desire. I've been madly in love with you ever since Anne introduced us, but I swore to leave everyone else behind and never even hinted at how I felt. And made those same vows and broke them, and from what I can tell, this has been going on for some time. I returned to the bedroom, where Anne was sitting on the bed, crying. I told her to stop crying and pack her things. She sobbed, "I don't have to leave. This is my house too." No, it's not. Not anymore. Remember the prenuptial agreement your father insisted I sign before our wedding? Anne's family was fairly wealthy, and her father wanted to ensure that the family business stayed in the family. I didn't care about his business. All I wanted was his daughter, so I signed it without even bothering to read it, tossed it in a drawer, and forgot about it. That is, until my brother caught his wife cheating and divorced her. His wife acted like a thief, and my brother got taken advantage of. One evening, while we were having drinks at Bud's bar, he told me he wished he had a prenuptial agreement like mine. Out of curiosity, I dug it up and read through it. There was a clause about marital infidelity stating that the guilty party would leave the marriage with nothing but the clothes on their back and whatever was in their name. Everything Anne and I had was shared, so she ended up with nothing. And dressed and left, undoubtedly taking her naked boss with her. The next morning, I went to the bank as soon as it opened. I closed all our joint accounts and opened new ones solely in my name. Then I found a lawyer and initiated divorce proceedings. I also learned that we lived in a no-fault divorce state. When I asked if it mattered that her boss was also the owner of the company she worked for, he asked me if I knew whether the company had a corporate policy and procedures manual. I told him I was pretty sure they did. He then asked if I knew whether there was a section about relationships between a supervisor and someone they supervise. I said I was almost certain there was. And had a copy of that manual at home, and I figured it was still there since all she had taken with her was her clothes. When I got home that evening, I checked, and sure enough, the manual was still sitting on the shelf in our home office. The next morning, I took it to my lawyer. After reading it, he said, "We've got him." The papers were served to Anne and her boss at work in front of all their coworkers. 2 days later, we received a response from their side. When I got home from work, Anne's father was sitting on the porch. After we exchanged greetings, which were polite, he asked if we could go inside and talk. Once inside, he asked, "What's this nonsense about you divorcing Anne and kicking her out of the house? It's her home too. I caught her cheating and threw her out. This is all because of you. Remember the agreement you made me sign before we got married? The one that said if either of us cheats, the cheater leaves with nothing but their clothes? Do you remember that? She's human, Bob. She makes mistakes, like everyone else. And loves you to death. I'm sure you can get past this. I know you love her. Maybe if it had been a one-time mistake, but from what I've learned, this has been going on for over a year and with more than one man. That agreement you signed was only meant to keep the business in the family. Then you should have written it that way. The way you worded it, it's clear that if either of us cheats, they walk away with nothing. This is all your fault. You wrote it. You made me sign it. This is on you and Anne. You need to go easy on her, son. If you force me to hire a lawyer for her, things could get messy. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, pressed a few buttons, and said, "You want trouble? I'll give you trouble." I held up the phone so he could see for himself what I'd discovered. He looked at it and then, with surprise, said, "Wait. That's Tom." Yes, it was him. Then he heard from our bedroom, "I'm almost done." "Who's next?" as I approached the door. Then he saw his dear daughter and her lover trying to get out of bed. I stopped the video and said, "How unpleasant would it be for all your friends and relatives to receive a personal copy of this?" "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I would. If you stay out of this, on the day the divorce is finalized, I'll destroy it. No one but you, me, and my lawyer will ever see it. But if you hire a lawyer for Anne and fight the divorce, I'll go nuclear. The choice is yours." Then he surprised me by pulling a .38 revolver from his pocket and demanding I hand over my phone. "For what? What are you going to do with it?" "Delete that cursed video." "Fine," I said, "then it's nuclear war," and I handed him the phone. He waved the gun in my face and ordered me to step back to the other end of the room. I did as he asked, watching him press buttons to delete what I had on his daughter. He put the phone down, stood up, and said, "See you in court," before leaving the house. As soon as he was gone, I went to my computer and sent the video to my mother-in-law. Half an hour later, my father-in-law called. "You dirty son of a gun. How could you stoop so low as to send that filth to my wife? I told you that if you messed with me, I would bring the nuclear option down on you. I can't believe you're so foolish as to think I wouldn't have backup copies. So far, I've only sent it to your wife. Cross me again, and the whole world will see it." "You idiot," he yelled, then hung up. He didn't hire a lawyer for Anne, and the divorce went through. I was a bit surprised when Steph called me 2 days after the divorce. "Did you really mean it when you said you had a thing for me?" "I did. I'm free tonight. I hadn't been with any woman since I filed for divorce. Call me old-fashioned, but I was still married and felt that I would have been a cheater too if I got involved with someone else while I was still married to Anne. The divorce was final now, and I needed the company, so I asked what she had in mind. How about dinner, drinks, and some conversation? We'll see where it goes." "That sounds good. How about I pick you up at 6? I'll be ready." That evening, after dinner and drinks, I asked her about the timing of her call. "It's pretty simple, really. I know the kind of guy you are. I knew you wouldn't get involved with another woman while you were still married. Am I wrong?" "No, you're right about me, but how did you know I was free now?" "And was having some trouble at work, and when I asked her what happened, she mentioned the divorce was finalized. You know she still loves you, right? But not enough to stay faithful. It wasn't entirely her fault. The first time, she was drugged with something like a date rape drug, and that jerk filmed it. He told her she belonged to him now and that he could use her whenever he wanted, or else he'd make sure you got the video. That doesn't matter. If she had come to me after that first time and told me, we might still be together. But she didn't trust me or believe in my love for her enough to do that. Why are we ruining our date by talking about her? So, what's next? I've already told you I like you, so the next move is yours. Your place or mine? Mine is closer. Then why are we still sitting here? It was exhausting. We were intimate in different ways, and by the time I collapsed onto the bed next to her, I thought I was done. Then she said, "Do you have enough energy left for one more round?" At that, I felt a twitch of excitement. I had never done that before, and always refused to even try. I don't know. When I fell next to you, I thought I was finished. Want to bet I can get you going again? Should I try? Go ahead. It took her a while, but she managed it. Then I told her she'd have to guide me through it, as I'd never done that before. She gave me a strange look when I said that, and I asked her why she was looking at me like that. She replied, "And loves it when she's taken that way." Another thing I can hold against her, since she never did that with me. Steph explained how it's done, and I liked it. When we were finished, she went to the bathroom and came back with a washcloth and a towel, cleaning me up as she said, "I want everything nice and ready for the first time we wake up together in the morning." That was my first clue that Steph planned to stay the night, so I asked what her plans were for the next day. She laughed and told me, "I'm staying here and spending the day with you. Does that work for you?" I had some things I needed to do, but nothing that can't wait until another day. We lay in bed, and as I waited for sleep to take over, I wondered where this would lead. I got my answer the next morning over a late breakfast. We woke up curled up next to each other. Her hand slid down and found me, and I responded to her touch. We repeated things 3 times before taking a break to grab something to eat. Over pancakes and bacon, she said, "I don't want you to get the wrong idea. I'm not interested in a long-term relationship. I already know I'm not capable of being faithful to any man, but if you're interested in a casual friendship, I'm all for it." I didn't have any other plans, so I thought, why not, and told her she could count on me. We spent the rest of Saturday and the first half of Sunday wearing each other out. Needless to say, she left me exhausted when she finally went home. She was still trying for more when I couldn't even keep my eyes open. 3 months into my relationship with Steph, my lawyer called to inform me that my lawsuits had been settled, and after deducting his fees, I was left with $1.3 million. About a month later, Steph told me that our relationship had run its course, but she hoped we could stay friends. I told her we could. Over the next 6 months, I dated several different women and had enough fun to keep me happy. But I still hadn't found anyone I wanted to settle down with. It was a Tuesday evening, and I stopped in for dinner at Tres Amigos. I was looking over the menu when the waitress came to take my order. I asked for a house margarita, 3 cheese and onion enchiladas, rice, and beans, and the waitress said, "Very well, senor. Perhaps you could make sure I get home safely when I finish work tonight." I looked at her in confusion and asked, "What? Didn't you appoint yourself as my protector that night near the Ojinaga Presidio Bridge?" "That was you?" "It was." I couldn't tell. "You were all bundled up, and your head was covered with a scarf. I thought you'd be in Las Cruces." "I couldn't find work. There were too many like me and not enough jobs. My cousin suggested I come to Denver because there were plenty of opportunities here." She glanced at the clock and said, "I need to go place your order. Maybe we can talk more later." She left to take care of my order, and as she walked away, I couldn't help but notice she had a great figure, which matched her pretty face. I decided that maybe we should talk later.